host, Kevin Smith. My guest this evening is Robert Collins. And, Robert, I want us to get into this a little bit deeper here because the title of the book is Exempt from Disclosure. All right, was there anything in particular that happened in 1991, any specific event or series of events that led to the closure of the disclosure effort?
Well, there was supposed to, in 1991, there was a scheduled meeting at Kenny Bunkport in Maine. And at that meeting, your Bush 1 was there, Walker Bush. He was there at that meeting. And at that meeting were about 12 other people, roughly 12 other people. And they had to have at least a majority of people, government officials with Bush, concur on any kind of disclosure plan. Well, going into the meeting, the impression was that they would have the necessary votes to get something through. But when the meeting actually occurred, the whole thing just got killed. Instead of having the 8 or 9 people out of the 12, they only had 4.
All right. Why? I'm a little, and I read this in the book. I went over it a couple of times in the book, but I'm a little bit confused about why there had to be this consensus of 8 or 9 people.
Because these were top-level government people, and unless you had a consensus to go forward with something, and I assume they still do this in the White House when they have their cabinet meetings or any type of special group meeting, that unless you get a majority of votes, the whole issue either gets passed or it gets killed.
All right, now this group, would this be the MJ12 people?
Some of them might have been in the MJ12, but we weren't given that information. We were just told that this is what happened and the reason the whole thing died in 1991.
Okay, and part of the information, I guess, that they had to decide upon about whether it was going to be disclosed or not would be information related to the reality, not just UFOs, but the reality of intelligent extraterrestrial civilizations and visitations.
Oh, sure. If they had gotten the okay, for the sake of argument, if they had gotten the okay, I was told that they were really prepared to open the doors. And they were going to give Jamie Shander, who's a media person, access to any and all types of information that they thought he needed to get the message out to the public. Of course, that never happened.
One of the stories, and I particularly like the fact that you bring up some of the big stories that we've heard, and you color in some details for us. One of them has to do with Hanger 18, and we learn from your book that it's really not Hanger 18. It's a hangar that's next to, I think it's Building 232.
Right. Right now it's split by, I know the name of the hangar, and I see it all the time. It sits right next to 18, but there's a story that goes with that too, I guess, back on the, going even further back, going back to the time of Roswell in 1947, these initial bodies that were recovered at Roswell were never put in 18. That didn't happen until 1952 or 53. The ones from Roswell were actually put in the underground vaults, cryogenic vaults that were converted into holding recovered bodies that were from Roswell and other places. But the Hanger 18 is 1952 or 53, where they actually brought in a craft, dug up the floor of the hangar, put the craft in that hole they created, and then covered the floor over the top of the craft. And then they built the entryway from Building 18, it's Building 18, over to this hangar.
Yeah.
An underground building, that vaulted door that actually connects to this craft that was buried under this hangar floor.
And were you able to find out what they do with that? I mean, were they trying to back engineer it, or what's going on with that hangar?
Back in those days, they probably just kept it secure and didn't. And I'm sure there were lots of. Of course, I wasn't around back then, but they kept it secure so the engineers and scientists could go in and look at it and do exploitation on it. But they've been strolling with that stuff ever since 1947, and according to the latest contacts, they're still having a tough time with the materials and the propulsion system.
This is not in your book, but it relates to what you just said. Over Vietnam, and really right at the Vietnam-Cambodia border, just offshore over a small island, just several weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago or so, there was a reported UFO crash. The military, Cambodian and I guess Vietnamese military, went out looking to see what they could find, and indeed found a crash site and recovered some materials. There was a photograph of one of the, I think it was a Cambodian policeman, carrying about a 3-foot section of the stuff. I read an article later that said it had been analyzed, and it is not metal, and contains primarily biologic, they called it a biologic compound. Do you know if that in any way meshes with what we've been able to discover about the materials from which these UFOs are made?
I don't know about the case. All I can guess about that particular case is like our technology is changing, the alien technology is changing at the same time. It's getting better just like our technology is getting better. So they may have gone and used or are using other types of material that have biological properties to them instead of the stuff that was described at Roswell.
All right. I know folks want to hear about EB1 and EB2, and I also would like for us to get into a discussion of this possible alien mandible, a couple of pictures of which you have in your book. But I don't want to spend a great deal of time on that to the exclusion of what I found to be a really, really interesting angle that involves President John F. Kennedy. So we have to take a break. When we come back from the break, we'll dive into that deep water. We'll be back, folks. Don't go away.